I would like to welcome you to our third branch meeting. Please be reminded that this event will be recorded. This for your information, and also please listen carefully the event, the presentation, and if you got any queries, any questions, please write down your question in the chat box. And at the end of the session, one of our committee member will convey your questions to the speaker and he will answer you accordingly. Please keep your mic muted. If you would like to on your video, it's up to you. If you want to put it off, it's up to you again. The reason saying that being muted is because to avoid any conflicts on any sounds during this session. We have the volunteer speaker from the ADNOC group of companies, Mr. Odafi, who is the senior HSE engineer, and he brought up a very great subject, especially for the oil and gas employees or health and safety professional. But it doesn't mean that this is only for the oil and gas. Definitely, there will be a lot of stuff such as coach management and chemical safety, etc. So I believe that you all will get a lot of benefits from it. So please stay with us, and the floor is now to Mr. Odafi.
Thank you so much, Said, for that introduction. So good afternoon, everyone, and I welcome you to this, our special meeting. Today, I'm going to be taking us through blinding and deblinding best practices, especially from ADNOC gas processing. Now, you may not be into gas processing or into oil processing, but basically, as we journey along, if the career takes you into this field, this information will be definitely valuable. Now, apart from being valuable in the oil and gas industry, this information I'm going to share today is also going to be valuable to you if you find yourself in future.
Odafi, are you there? Odafi, your mic is mute. Your mic is mute. Please unmute your mic.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Put your presentation again, please.
All right. Can you see it now? Can you see it now?
Yeah, it's appearing. Few moments. It's appearing now. Yes, I can see it. Welcome to all the new comers, those have joined recently. We have already started. So Odafi, please go ahead.
All right. Thank you, Said. Okay, so today I will also look at our roles as health and safety professionals when it comes to this subject of blinding and deblinding. I will take a few incidents that have happened because some of the things that were shared or that I'm going to share in this slide, you know, the people who executed that activity did not take that into cognizance before executing the activities. And there's also going to be time for questions and answer. Okay. Background. This presentation is derived from my own personal experience, majorly at ADNOC Group and other producers that I've been privileged to work for. I also got some of this information from my interaction with a few people in the industry with me, I did a small research also to strengthen the information that I'm presenting to this great body. The hazardous chemical energy industry, and in particular, the oil and gas industry, a subsector, has many potential health and safety threats. As a result of that, there is no one player in this subsector that can afford to have any substandard management system. And this underscores why there is always an ongoing effort by all of the players in this subsector to adopt best practices in whatever they do, especially in health and safety. When you come to our industry and you say you have initiatives, you have new ideas, you have innovative solutions, they listen to you. It is one industry that is very sensitive, very open to innovations, best practices. Because in the industry, a very small oversight usually will have many impacts, many impacts. Now, we're going to be talking about blinding and deblinding formalities. And this truly is some of the standard protocols that we observe, that are observed by the players. Whenever a process plant or equipment or a system is required to be taken out for servicing or for major repair or modification, blinding and deblinding immediately comes to mind. Now, let's look at some of the purposes for doing this blinding and deblinding. Blinding and deblinding is a part of a positive mechanical isolation. As a matter of fact, it is the most important part of the positive mechanical isolations that are executed in the hazardous chemical energy industries, especially the oil and gas subsector. Now, without the insertion of blinds or spades on the line, even with a block and bleed valve, mechanical isolation is not complete. It's not deemed to be complete, except you insert, blinds into the line, or you use blinds to close that valve that you have removed. Now, another reason why we do blinding in the industry is to close up a loop when we have physically isolated the energy by removing a valve. We use it to close up that loop. If you remove a valve, you can't leave it open the way it is. You have to close it up with a blind. It's a mandatory requirement. Blinding and deblinding also help to protect employees from unexpected release of hazardous energy in situations where workers are expected or are
Mudafi, we lost your presentation. Can you display the presentation?
and people we need to enter. Sometimes we do deblind to let process streams go into a draining system for systematic disposal. Sometimes we can just remove that blind from an equipment, from a vessel or from a tank. When you want to drain off and dispose that process stream systematically. Now, another reason why we also do blinding, and of course the blinding on the other hand, is to ensure that the correct line or equipment is opened.
Mr. Udape, please share your screen.
Can you see my screen now?
No, just wait for a while. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
coming now. Go ahead, please.
All right, so gentlemen, I was also talking about some of the reasons why we do blinding, and of course, deep blinding on the other hand, because once you blind, you must deep blind. Sometimes we don't even blind, but we deep blind because we have a permanent blind in place by design. So we deep blind to drain off sometimes and then dispose of processed streams systematically. So many of the experienced technicians that I know, they will never do an intrusive maintenance work or inspection or entrance into an equipment without first checking out that that equipment has been properly blinded. Because when it is properly blinded, it shows that that equipment they are entering into is the right equipment, the correct equipment that have been identified for that maintenance work. We also do blinding to minimize environmental pollution, environmental impact due to the release of hazardous substances during initial opening. If you don't do blinding and you open a vessel suddenly at once, you can get some releases into the atmosphere. Blinding helps to prevent this. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about preparation for blinding. Now, if there's going to be any intervention, maintenance, or modification, whatever work inside an equipment, a vessel, or a tank, before ever that is done, you do a blinding. And before you do a blinding, there are some preparation from planning works that you need to carry out. One of them is that you need to now complete the hazardous energy isolation form. Some companies do call it the blinding list. On this form, you have to specify the equipment or the line by their numbers that you want to work on, you want to blind. You also have to state the activity that is driving this blinding. Maybe it's just for inspection or for cleaning or for modification. That needs to come out very clearly on the form. Then you need to obtain the piping and instrumentation drawing for that equipment, for that line. And then on that piping and instrumentation drawing, P&ID, you need to mark up the locations of the flanges, the locations of the valve, locations on the line that you are going to insert the blinds. You need to mark them out. And then attach it to your blinding list or your hazardous energy isolation forms. Some companies, they call it hazardous energy, some call it blinding list. So whichever one you call it, you must attach your piping and instrumentation drawing that has been properly marked up to show the locations in which blinds are going to be inserted. All right, so once this is ready, you have your blinding list generated, or you have your hazardous energy form completed. Then you need to send this along with together with the P&ID to the asset owner for review and approval. For review and approval. But for me, it's a good practice before you do that, to send to the process control or the process engineering team so that they can also have a review of it. And if you have done a proper job, they will tell you, okay, this is fine. You can then send it to the asset owner for review and approval. You must mention on this form the blind size and the rating of the blind that you are going to be inserting. Right, so once this is signed off, any change whatsoever on that form or on the blind list will automatically nullify the form or the blind list. What that means is that once it is signed off by the asset owner authority, then it is cast on stone. You can't change anything there. Otherwise, you have to go over that process again. Okay, so this is part of the preparation to actually insert the blind. Okay, now you have the permission to insert the blind. Then another action that you must take as part of the preparation is that you have to sort the blind to be used, and then you have to put tags on them. Some organizations, they have tags that can be used to identify blinds. They have tags that can be used to serialize them, to indicate the line.
Udafi, your screen is again disappeared. Can you please check?
Okay, so can we move on now? Can we move on now, Said?
Yeah, go ahead, go ahead. There was a break for a while, but go ahead, please.
Yeah, each time a person joins, there's that disruption in the flow. Okay, so we're gonna move on now. So I talk about the fact that you need to sort the blinds. You need to tag them. You need to give them serial number. You need to mention on them with the tag what equipment you are going to use them for. You need to mention the name of the equipment and the number of the equipment. All of that need to be contained in the tag that you are fixing on each blind. Okay. So moving on. Right. So now we are going into the blinding proper. Once you have all of the approval now to insert the blind, you need to identify who is the man that operates the equipment. You need to verify, you need to confirm from the equipment operator that that equipment has been shut off. Because
Udafi, your screen disappeared again. Can you please work on it?
so you need to verify that the equipment has been shut off and there is zero energy before work begins. And this is where the competence of the blind or the spade installer is tested. There are so many ways by which we check whether an equipment is shut off or not, so that you don't go on and open an equipment that is still on stream. So before you insert the blind, you need to check for zero energy. Then blinding and deep blinding usually should be done one at a time. Once you insert one blind, you must complete the blind tag for it. And then you must fix the blind tag on that blind that you have inserted. I did not mention that before you even insert a blind, the point where you're going to insert that blind, there's something we call the blind point tag. You are going to first and foremost install your blind point tags at all the locations where blinds are going to be inserted. Then eventually when you insert those blinds, you will remove the blind point tags, and then you're going to replace it with what we call the blinded or the speeded tags to show that this equipment has not been blinded. It is not just planned to be blinded. It is now truly and completely blinded. And then all of the information on the blind point tag, you will transfer them to the blinded tag or the speeded tag now. In terms of number, name of the person who did the installation, the equipment name, the equipment number or the line number, the date in which the blind was inserted, all of that you will put on the blinded tag for that location. Now, the information on the blind point tag and then the blinded or the speeded tag are essentially the same. But, companies used to differentiate one from the other by the color in which they give them, All right. Now, once these blinds have been inserted and the blinded tag have been completed and fixed on the blind where you have inserted it, the technician installing the blind or the speed notifies the equipment operator, and in some cases, the process control engineer, that, okay, we'll finish blinding the whole of this line. This work is completed. We have signed off the blinded tags. We've signed off the blind list, and we signed off on the hazardous energy isolation form. He has to, notify the equipment operator and the process control engineer. And then day two, the equipment operator and the process control engineer, we go now to see the equipment and then check again whether truly and correctly the blinds have been inserted in those positions that were identified earlier for the insertion of the blind. And if they are satisfied with the work that was done by the technician who did the insertion of the blind, then they also will sign off on the blind list or the isolation form to show that they have checked, and then it's fine, it's okay. Now, the equipment operator, the process control engineer, the technician who inserted the blind, they've all signed off on the blind list or on the hazardous energy isolation form, that the job is completed, the equipment is ready to go out for servicing or whatever. Now, it is very important that the person who supervises the equipment operator, sometimes in some companies they call them shift supervisors, in some companies they call them shift controllers. Different companies, use different job titles for this position, but this person who supervises the equipment operator must finally authorize the blinding. He must get a copy of what has been done, and then he must authorize that equipment to be blinded, for them to insert a blind or a speed into a process equipment or a process line. That is a very important requirement. Now, when the blinds are inserted, activity is complete, the maintenance activity or the inspection or the sign of blinds ended.
Odafi, your voice is breaking and the slides are not changing. Can you please recheck? Ladies and gentlemen, sorry for the inconveniences occurring again and again. We're trying to fix the issue and Odafi will be back in a second. We're communicating with him, so please stay with us. Thank you.
All right. Said, can you see me now?
Yes, please fix it because people are concentrating a lot on the subject and it's a very essential subject. So try to figure out this internet issue you might have it. I think we have only a few slides remaining.
Yeah, the point is that when somebody joins in, the old system, I see on my screen, somebody joins and then again, it just goes off and on. Anyhow, we have a few slides left. Let me quickly move on with it. Now, I was talking about the fact that now activity is completed. The activity that necessitated the insertion of blinds and spades into the process line underneath the equipment or the tank or the vessel. Maybe it's an inspection work or a cleaning work or a modification work. They finished it. So that equipment is now ready to be taken back into service. So all of the permits that are associated with the work, they will be closed. And then you now raise a new permit for removing the blinds. We call that the deblinding request work. You will raise a new permit for that one. The same way you inserted the blinds and the spades sequentially, so also you're going to take the hazardous energy isolation form or the blinding list. You're going to take it back to the process area, to the equipment, to the unit. You're going to sequentially also start to remove the blinds. And for every blind that you remove, you're going to remove and close it on the tag, the blind insertion tag that you placed on it. You're going to also close it on the blinding list or the hazardous energy isolation form that you generated earlier on while you're trying to insert the blinds. You're going to do that one after the other. Now, this is very important. For most companies, they do not have this level of control. There's another level of control we call independent verification. This is done by another body or another team of persons that were not part of the equipment operating team. They are not part of the process control team. They are not even part of the blind installation and removal team. This is another layer of control through the code high review or the lens of an outsider. Me as an health and safety practitioner, and for most of us who are on this call, we may have been part of this independent verification team before ever they start to break into any vessel, when they say they have finished the blind insertion and they want to break into that vessel or that equipment, this independent verification body, they will go and then do an audit. We call it blinding and deblinding integrity assurance audit. This is very key. It's a very key requirement these days in the oil and gas subsector. Because me as a person, I have seen situations where this particular audit had been able to change or save or averted what would have been a catastrophic loss of product. So this is very important. Independent verification by a body that is not part of the blinding and deblinding, not part of the process engineering. Usually they drag HS health and safety professionals into this team to go and do what we call a code high review of what this other group of people in maintenance or group of people in process control, this group of people in shutdown works, what they have done. All right. Now, I said earlier on that we as health and safety practitioners, I have been dragged into this thing. And then if you're on this call also and you're in this subsector, a time could come when you could be asked to come and be part of this verification team. That is why it is very important. It underscores why we need to take active interest in the processes and procedures that are driving our organization's fiscal objectives, so that we can bring values, we can add values that will be felt across our value chain, so that when we go in there, we'll be able to contribute something. We'll have a say, we'll have a voice. That is why we take interest, not just in health and safety of the organization that we work for, but also in some of the processes and procedures that are driving their fiscal objectives. Now, we're going to consider two incidents that I have witnessed as a result of not following some of the best practices and mitigations that I have spoken about in the course of this presentation. Now, the first one is lack of supervision. I said when I was opening that one of the hazards with this blinding and deblinding is lack of supervision. Now, the story has it that this group of people, they were assigned to blind a spool for replacement. And the supervisor had instructed the technician to sort the blinds and the gaskets and the tools to be taken to the work, while himself he completes the permit to work processes. Now, before the supervisor could arrive at the location of insertion of blind, the technician had started loosening the flange joints to install blinds. In between, he noticed that the gasket he has brought to that location was not the right size. So he left hurriedly to go and get the correct size of gasket for that blind installation. Unfortunately, before he got back, there was already a huge oil spillage that has occurred in that location. Lack of supervision, incompetence. For every blinding and deblinding job, there should be strict supervision. The technician, the artisan, they should do the job under a strict supervision, under a strict directive from the supervisor. Somebody should be there to guide them properly to get the job done. Right. That was one incident that had occurred that I know of in the industry. Another thing that happened also, another incident, this one actually was a near miss. this one also would have been catastrophic. But for the intervention of these blinding and de-blinding integrity assurance team. Right, look at this picture. There are two lines here that are similar. We have line A and line B. Line A had suffered severe corrosion. So there's a plan to sectionally replace line A. In the course of marking it up on the PNID, in the course of tagging it off for blind insertion, it was line B that was marked on the PNID for replacement. And then all of the flanges on that line were also tagged off for insertion of blind. But why the independent blind integrity assurance audit team were going around, they were looking at all of the documentation, and then they were going to check what had been tagged for blind insertion. They discovered that it was actually line B instead of line A that had been tagged off, that had even been marked up on the PNID for sectional replacement. Now, without this audit, without this blinding and de-blinding integrity assurance verification, this group of people, this team, this maintenance team would have ended up cutting off, severing line B instead of line A that had that severe corrosion, which was actually placed for replacement. So, gentlemen, these are some of the common mistakes or failures and the outcome that we have seen commonly in the industry. And this is coming as a result of inexperience, incompetence. People who have no idea how to verify that an equipment has been shut off shouldn't be involved in blinding. People, technicians or artisans who do not know how to interpret piping and instrumentation drawings shouldn't have any business with blinding and de-blinding. People who haven't actually gone through the company's procedure. For every company, there's a procedure written for blinding and de-blinding. If you have no idea what that procedure states, then you shouldn't have your hands on blinding and de-blinding. Many times each time I go to see where they're doing blinding and de-blinding work, the first thing is to challenge the technician inserting the blind. Do you have piping and instrumentation drawing? You say yes. Can I see it? You say okay. Then can you take me through all these points? We go through all of the points, maybe 16 points that have been marked off for blinding. We'll go through them one after the other to be sure that this technician understands, he can read off, understands this drawing, and he can interpret the symbols that are used, commonly used on this piping and instrumentation drawing. All right. I think that is it from me, Said. Now I'm going to be ready to take questions.
Asif, our communication coordinator, will get the questions from the chat box, and then you can answer.
Thank you very much, Rafi. It was really great and comprehensive presentation. It was very beneficial. This was something new for me, so I loved it. Thank you very much. We have a couple of questions. The first question is, what is the comparison between Lotto practice and blending, de-blending?
Lotto is log out,
take out. What is the comparison?
Now, why blinding and de-blinding is a mechanical process. Mechanical engineering team use blinding and deep blinding to execute the isolation process. Load to log out and tag out process is used by electrical team to execute their own isolation activities. Now, some equipment, we have both mechanical and electrical energy powering them. And you need to isolate both mechanical and electrical energies before you can do a work on them. So while the mechanical people are busy with blinding and deep blinding and all of those mechanical isolations, the electrical team will be busy with, equipment shut off, rack out, rack in, load to application, and stuff like that. So that's the difference between them.
Thank you very much. I hope you answered the question. Another question is, what is the correct sequence of opening the flange bolt? What is the correct sequence of opening the flange bolt?
Before ever you open the flange bolt, we have the flange bolt opening chart. There's a flange bolt opening chart. You need to obtain the flange bolt opening chart. It will tell you this is the first bolt you will open, and then you open this one next. Usually it's diagonal. If you open on this top, you have to open the next one at the bottom. If you open on this eastern part of the flange bolt, you have to open the next one on the western part of the flange bolt. So it is usually given as per the process controls, process engineering controls team. They will give you a flange bolt loosening chart, and you go to follow that chart. Usually it's diagonal. When you open one on the north pole, you open the next one on the south pole, and so on and so forth until you complete the whole of the bolts, loosening them.
Okay, the question is blending and spreading activity same?
Blinding and spading activity is basically the same thing. You can use blinds or you can use spades.
Okay.
When you say blinding, it means you use blind. When you say spading, you use spades.
Okay, the safety department participating in the procedure of blending, deblending, or no?
Safety department, I didn't get that.
Okay, okay.
What did you say? Come back with that question.
Okay. What type of permit do we need for this activity? I think hot.
Yeah, you need hot permit. Where you have general permit, and then you need hot permit because of the fact that you might be using some mechanical equipment like compressor, pneumatic tools, and all that. You may have a main permit, and then you have a complementary permit called hot permit in it.
Okay, we have one more question. Is there any standard for blend rating to ensure the integrity of blend spade?
Yes, we have all of the blinds, standard blinds. They have their rating, they have their thickness value, they have their diameter, the dia of each of the farm. We have standard blind chart also that gives you all of the information regarding each blind.
Okay, blending, deblending also using in living plant? In living plant, do we use blending, deblending?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, we got one more question. What is the role of isolation and de-isolation in blending and deblending process?
Now, I said that blinding and deblinding is the major part of isolation and de-isolation. The isolation might require electrical and mechanical. So when you talk about blinding, it's just one part of it. It's that one of blind. There is also equipment shut off. You have to shut down the equipment. That is part of the mechanical isolation. That is done by another group of people, the equipment operator. So blinding and de-blinding is one part of the isolation and de-isolation process, just a small part of it, but it's the most important part of mechanical blinding and mechanical isolation and de-isolation.
Okay, we have one question from Mr. Ijaz. Can you explain in short about tail blend, spectacle blend, and end blend or temporary blend?
Now we have what we call end blinds.
Yeah.
When you remove a valve from an equipment, from a line, you need to put an end blind in it just to close that loop, that end of just end blind. It means that it's the end of it, it's the end of the road. Just put it there, and that is it, to cover that loop. Then we have what
okay.
Then we have what we
Go
call
on.
again. We have what we call temporary blinds. In fact, most of the blinds are actually temporary blinds because you put them there. Once work is completed, you remove them. Once work is completed on the line or on the equipment, you remove them. Then we have permanent blinds. Those ones are permanently on the bottom of the vessel. It is when you want to intentionally drain off the content of that vessel, you have to remove them and allow that content to drain off. Otherwise, you put that permanent blind back. If you don't put it back, you will lose your product. It will just keep going into the drain. So temporary blinds are blinds that you put and then remove when the purposes of putting them are completed.
Okay, we got one question. Can LERO permit use for blending?
Permits are used for blending.
Yeah. Okay, you already answered that one.
I answered that question. Permit, you want to blind, you must use permit. You want to deblind, you also must raise permit that now I have finished the work I need to do. I'm going to remove the blinds. That communicate that information to the equipment operator, the process control engineer, and every other person that has a stake on that equipment or that line that you are going to remove the blinds on.
Okay, one more question. Are there any timelines for such bending operation, example in case of urgent maintenance?
There are no timelines.
Okay.
It's just sequence. There are sequential requirements, not timeline. That before you start the work, blind. When you finish the work, they blind. We have that sequential requirement, not time. Take your time, do it and do it well.
Okay. And what is breaking hydrocarbon?
Breaking in hydrocarbon equipment, breaking in. That is for the first time if you are going to open an hydrocarbon vessel or line or tank, we call it breaking in. You want to open, it's simply an opening. You are removing the bolts and the nuts, and you are separating the flanges so that things can come out. Breaking in is opening for short. You are opening a vessel or a line or an equipment. In the hydrocarbon subsector, that is what we call it.
Okay, we got one question. Who is signing blending, deblending permit? So I believe the permit issuer shall sign.
Exactly,
receiver.
exactly.
Okay.
The equipment.
Yeah. Any third-party certification required for the person who performing blending?
No. There's no third-party certification. From company to company, they have internal arrangement by which they ensure the competencies of people who are going to be, inserting blinds and removing blinds within their system. Because from company to company, if you go, you see that one design, one process is different from the other. Their processes differ. So they have an internal system by which they train people and ensure their competencies to carry out blinding and deblinding.
Okay. Do we use blinds in hard taping?
For sure, for sure.
Okay. Abdul Halim asked, does a blending disc plunge require hydro test or pneumatic pressure test to confirm the strength of blend?
No. They don't use idle test or pneumatic test to confirm the test of blind. Each of the line, and from the PNID, you will see the rating of the blind, the size of the blind that should be used for a line. That is what you will follow. So you will use that one to insert the blind. If the work that you do requires you to do idle test or pneumatic test, go on and do the work based on the blind that have been inserted, because it has followed the PNID requirement and specification in the PNID.
Okay, Kifayatullah asks, safety supervision required for blending and deblending or not?
Required, it's required. Safety supervision is required for blind. That is why as safety people, we need to take interest in understanding how the process runs, in understanding the drawings, and effectively supervise blinding and deblinding activities.
Okay, there is one interesting question. I have joined late. Could you please explain us about standard blends? Because during SD activity, I have seen many non-standard blends, fabricated one being used.
Yeah, standard blinds are blinds that are direct from the manufacturer, from factory. They are not makeshift. They did not cut them quickly or gently on site because they need to put a blind. They have made the requirement of ISO 9001. They made the requirement of the line itself, the line you are going to use it, in terms of properties and material, in terms of size and rating and thickness. Those are standard blinds. They came all the way, and they are meeting specifications that you have sent to the manufacturer. But non-standard are the ones they cut quickly on site because they needed to blind something and they don't have the blind available.
Okay, great. What is positive isolation?
Positive isolation is the same thing as mechanical isolation, where you shut off the equipment and you start blind. Positive isolation is the umbrella name for shutting off the equipment, inserting blind, all those mechanical isolation. That is what we call positive isolation, insertion of blinds.
That's it. Okay. Last but not least, okay, what is the lifetime of blends? What could cause the blends become unsuitable for the activity?
Blinds will be unsuitable for activity when they become corroded, when they have been subjected to environmental impact and chemicals. Then they become unsuitable. When they have been damaged, in the process of handling blinds, if you drop them from height very dangerously, it could damage the blind and they become unsuitable for use.
Thank you very much. Thank you. That's what we have more questions, but we will answer them via email or they can contact you. Syed, that's it from me.
Okay, everyone.
The questions are also answered. Already answered. Yeah. Okay.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for attending and sparing your time and making this event one of a beneficial and one of the great events for all of us. Thank you, Udafa, for your presentation and giving us this comprehensive blending presentation to us. Definitely, it was beneficial for the oil and gas industry and new things for the construction people. Please, everyone, you will be getting a survey email from us, and we will appreciate if you could please spare some time and give us your feedback. Your feedbacks are always very essential for us. You all will be getting the certificate of attendees for this, but please bear with us. It could take minimum or maximum 2 weeks, but we will appreciate your patience on this, and we are eager to hear from you. So the survey will be sent across to you maybe today or tomorrow. or maybe within this week, please spend some time and fill that survey in order to enable us to improve the branch and the IOSH. Thank you very much, everyone. Again, thank you very much, Catherine from UK, our branch coordinator. She's always there for such sessions. And we are happy and we are, I think, lucky having her because she is arranging these all of steps for us. So thank you very much, everyone, and hope to see you with the new event within the month of October. So stay blessed and good evening, good night, and bye-bye to everyone.